Hi, welcome to my second video in a series where I am trying to create an AI agent. I don't know how to create an AI agent, but I do know how to use AI, and that's all you really need to create something like this, I believe. We are in the process of doing it. In the first video, we created this thread wherein we we created a contract, is what we did. Basically, outlining exactly what it is we're wanting to get from this agent, how it's going to work, outlining safety guardrails, like so that it doesn't do things it shouldn't. Very we're going to be constraining it to do exactly what we want it to do with minimal human just oversight. It should save me a lot of time when I close my threads. I have a protocol for closing threads in order to keep continuity between threads and to document everything that's going. And it's very important, but it also is the current bottleneck in my workflow. My workflow hums and goes so fast, except that's a bottleneck. So we're trying to alleviate that. And plus, then also learn something while we make this. So basically, what we got out of that first file was two documents: the thread close agent project contract, which is a file that tells that is information for the outline of what we are trying to create so that we know what we're doing going forward. And so now it's in the now that we created it in that file, I then uploaded it to the project after we were done with that file and it created it. So it didn't start off. When I first opened this project, only the ones below, only chain AI alignment, creative framework, thread lifecycle protocol, coding development, and project governance, the only ones that were in there initially. They are basic project files that go into pretty much every project I use because they tell the AI how to work with me. Um, they tell the AI the workflow, thread continuity, thread lifecycle protocol is so big. And all of these are important, really important, especially the AI alignment, the thread lifecycle protocol, and the coding development workflow in particular are vital. Um, and without those, I wouldn't be able to do the things I do. So those went in before I did anything. Then after that first thread, that thread resulted in two more files that then I loaded in. That'll be in the project going forward. They may get edited, but they're there now. So the first one is talking about the project itself, which is to create the agent and how we're going about it. Basically, it is the rules, everything we've come up with so far. The next one is rules for how the agent will work. So these are the rules the agent will work from. That's the other file. And I'm sure that one will be updated quite a bit before we're done with this project. Probably both of them. So now when I go in and say execute thread protocol or execute initiation protocol to start a new thread, it will not only load like the first five, like it did with the first thread, it will load these two as well. So all seven of them will be very much at the forefront of its memory. It would have those information just because it's in the project folder. It would still have the data, but I find it's good, especially at the beginning of threads, to really have it, yeah, verify and like read them carefully. Um, so execute initiation protocol and verify. And the only reason it even knows how to execute the initiation protocol and what that is because it's in those MD files. It's a command that is in the thread lifecycle protocol, along with the thread close protocol, which we are trying to streamline with this agent. So, yeah, okay, so it looks like we are good. Yep, it knows what we're up to, got everything loaded in. I like my responses in short conversational prose. Um, and don't give me any more detail than unnecessary unless I ask. The next thing I send you will be a handoff from the previous thread to align you to your role in this project. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to this one. And one of the last things I had this one do as I was closing out this other thread, the agent contract one, was I had it create. It's not that one, it's this one here. Yeah, so this is a handoff to tell the next thread what it should be doing. Oops. And that's purely meant to be read by the AI. It's not. It's not for human. I mean, you can read it, but that's not what it's for. It's instructions for the AI. Okay, now that you're aligned with where we're going, where should we start? So I've been envisioning this as a desktop, executable or something. That's yeah, just a GUI that helps us navigate it. Obviously, we'll need to be able to change what folder what folders it's working from to get the MD files it needs to look at. We'll need a way to point to the MD to the well, no, we'll need a like a little terminal or a little like a prompt box where we can put in handoffs from that tell it what all was done in the thread that it needs to check against the MD files. Um, we will then need it some kind of visual thing where it tells me um, what files are being changed and why and how or need to be changed along with the confidence level. I mean, everything we talked about. And then I need to be able to like select which ones will be moved forward to be edited and be able to leave any behind I don't want to change that I think should be not changed. And then after that, we'll need it to pop something up that shows the file size comparison for each original and replacement document, and allow me to click on them and like see what's actually in them if necessary. And then a confirmation. I guess we need. What else do we need? We need. So I was just doing that the hard way, and sometimes I get into a bad habit. I actually backed out of that. I was doing that the hard way. That's me trying to think of all the ways. And you do need to be thinking yourself. This is human direct. This is not AI. But at the same time, this is the kind of thing that AI could have. All I really needed to do there is this. Okay, why don't you give me a breakdown of how you view that, and then I will uh, discuss with you how that contrasts with how I look at it, if it's any different, and we'll figure out what we're looking at. Much easier way to do that, right? Because we already talked about this a lot in the last thread. So the information is there for the AI to pull this out. This is stuff we've discussed in other ways. We just haven't discussed it in the visual GUI. Um, okay, so okay, yeah, no, it does need to be a GUI. Yeah, okay. I don't know if we need to have saved project files. It feels like every time I do this, it'll be a one-off without it needing, like, I don't know that we need to save the project as a whole. The project files are, or we don't need to save project profile, right? The basically the project, the files it's working from to edit the stuff combined with the handoff telling what was in the thread is really all the information it needs to do it. I think I don't know that it needs an ongoing saved project, but correct me if I'm wrong. We do, however, need to be able to change what folders it's pointing at to pull files from for when I change projects. And then I would like it to remember which ones until I decide to change it again. So I don't have to like set that every time. I just set it when I switch projects I'm working on. So, and I think we'll have, and maybe separate ones for each project, but I think we'll have a working MD file for it to work from to set its scope, right? Um, and that could be project specific or just a general one that works for all of them, works for the concept. Because really it's systemic, like we were talking about before. It's something that's done as part of the system. It doesn't really need greater project awareness like you do, right? It because it's just comparing the files to the handoff we give it to see if things need to be updated. It's very focused. It doesn't really need to understand the project. I love watching it think. Uh, yeah, I mean, all it really needs is one file telling it this stuff. A lot like the project files here in, in GPT that align you so well. That's what I think anyway. So what do we need to look at next? Do we need project specific files for working files for this agent? Like, I'm trying to think of a situation where it would need to behave differently from one project to another. I can't think of any of my projects where it would. The thread lifecycle protocols, the thread close protocol, and all that don't are not project specific. I don't really see why this would ever need to be. But feel push back if I'm wrong. So, and yeah, it should, the part of the scope, it should be bounded to the folders that we are pointing it to, like that limits its scope, right? And then the language that we are using in the where's that? The language that we are using in the thread close agent operating protocol should also, I think, set its bounds too, right? So its scope. So I think we're setting its scope by giving it only certain files to look at, like it can't look at on my whole machine, right? And constraining it to only working from the handoff. Excuse me. Constraining it to only work from the handoff for the thread data, like those are the only two sources of data it is allowed to access to figure out if they need to be updated. So, do we need any more scope being framed than that? Yeah, we're going to constrain it to those things. Like it to get its protocols on how to work, it's only going to work from that one file to understand how it should behave. That's what I think. I don't think we need more than that. So I really only think there's one relevant system file, at least at this point. Yeah, and if it turns out we need to build more to get it to work right or whatever, like we need to build a bigger system for it somehow, we will. But let's start with this and see what we get, I think. Why don't you go into cross-check mode and double check this thinking though? Cross-check's awesome. It really is. For I bless it. Okay, so now when crosscheck comes back and says that it's right, because crosscheck almost always finds something, and it did find something. It's challenging the wording, like it because I've set up my crosscheck command to be rigorous in looking for issues with something and to totally go analytical, take out any form of like being cooperative or any of that, um, and to have it to check things because okay, so I have talked about logs for sure. Yeah. So as far as it like if it needs to write some stuff, I mean, yeah, we do have a tent. We're going to create something where it can write documents if it needs to. Definitely logs for sure. Um, but I don't know that it needs to reference those logs to help it set its boundaries or scope, right? Yeah. So basically, it's agreed. All right. So what do we need to do next? And come back out of cross check mode, please. Cross check has saved me issues in the past. Oh man. Also, having my AI set to disagree and telling it what it's that it in some ways it has the expertise I don't have. I'm not a programmer. I've never developed a game before or software before. Um, so the knowledge of how to go about that comes from it, even though the end result is coming from me with what we're actually making. The knowledge of how to do a lot of these things is coming from it. So it knows to push back and tell me if I'm getting ahead of myself. Because sometimes I'll think, oh, we're ready. Like I was ready to start like throwing in 3D objects in this thing, and they're like, no, and I mean I do have them now, but in the game, but when before I was wanting to do it before, we should have got there, right? And but I know if it was vanilla GPT, it probably just gone along with whatever I wanted to do and just kept riding with me, right? Like it does. But because of the way I've constrained it and taught it to think and given it roles are really important, it is willing to push back and tell me when I'm wrong. And sometimes then I will override it if I have information it doesn't have, and I real and but I override it in conjunction with talking to it about it first, like give it my reasons and talk to it, and it really helps work through things. Um, okay, what do you see in the actual screen panes? Could you actually create an image of what it would look like to you? I don't know if you can pull that off or not, actually. Why don't you give me a description first? Do you think in the second review state, if we put it in the same window, that we could just list all of the ones side by side, with each other, like all the various ones side by side with each other, so I could like review them all by file size, and then if I want to look closer, I can. But mostly, I like what you're saying here. It's actually very close to how I was visualizing it myself, which is because we talked this out, like, and so the visualization came from it for both of us, right? Um, yeah, it feels like that'll be more efficient because mainly I can go by file size change and have a really good idea if you did it right. It'll look, if you do it wrong, it will look suspicious. If you do it badly, like horribly wrong anyway, I mean, you might miss a little, but yeah, no, usually that means you did it right. And I haven't even noticed you missing. It feels like you either miss, it feels like there's only two ways you miss. You either just rewrite what was there and don't add anything in, that's rare, or you write a file that only contains the new stuff from the thread and leave out everything from the other one, which makes for a much smaller file size. That's way more common. Um, so if there's something wrong, the file size is either the same or less. If you did it right, usually means the file size is a little bit more. Um, okay, so I think we can do one. Yeah, I think one window that changes state after I hit proceed works. Because once I've done the candidate selection phase, we don't need to see that anymore. I don't think. Maybe a way to go back to it if necessary. Okay, so why don't you tell me what you're seeing shown in each of those rows based upon what we've talked about and what's in the MD files? It should have a really good idea. I'm almost going to be surprised if I have to change anything here because it feels like we've really. And this is why you create those files, is because then going forward, it knows what it's doing more than it would if you could, because you can't keep threads going forever and it loses memory and all this stuff. Like it would lose stuff if you didn't. It's this whole system is a way to keep it on task and keep yourself on task. Okay, I think we can start off with that. It'll be easy enough to change anything if it feels like it. off in some way, or if it feels like it needs refinement, that should be simple, simple. So, yeah, let's go ahead and lock that in. What should we look at doing now? Okay, so tell me how you view that. Okay. Yeah, no, drafting needs to be something I explicitly reprove after everything else has been done. Um, what do you expect the change scope button to accomplish? Is that just to change the folders it's looking at? No, because the working folders paths you already said maybe. So what would the change scope button do? That's the one part I don't necessarily see need. Especially if we're simply defining the scope like as an overall thing in an MD file that it works from. Unless because we're getting away from project, we're at least trying it without project specific scopes. So it feels like the change scope button would only be necessary if we end up deciding we need project specific scopes. And yeah, we're going to change the working docs fact, but I think the scope the document that tells it how the agent how to behave, that it'll just automatically always be pointed to that. I think, unless we decide to make project specific scopes, then we'll have to change it. So okay, so what do we need to do now? Lock end to end, shape the pieces already. Okay, no, that looks good. I think that's the definition. So uh do we have more work to do before we update MD files? Feels like we need to update MD files or write them or something for this, right? Yeah. Hey, what do you mean by module layout? Didn't we just do that, or is there something more we need to do? And yeah, we're not gonna if we're switching to coding, I'm actually gonna close this thread and start a new one just to keep focus. But that wouldn't be slicing yet, right? Okay, so maybe let's continue this thread and get that done, and then we'll get out of here once we start with the slicing. How do you tell me so this is in your area of expertise, not mine. So I want you to figure out the best layout. That's your role. Telling it has roles and responsibilities really works well. Okay, good. So that probably needs to go in the MD files as well, or a new file. I don't know which. What? So is there anything else we have to do before we actually start working on creating on coding? If we lock what you just said in. I guess we've been creating all along. Okay, perfect. So let's initiate thread closure protocol and start working on rewriting those MDs. So hopefully this will become obsolete. Well, part of this anyway. That's the goal here is to make a big part of this obsolete. This is one of the most pain in the butt. Um, yeah, it's the bottleneck. It's a bottleneck in my whole workflow. Um, and it's not a huge bottleneck. Like things fly, but it's still yeah, it's enough of one, and it takes me out of the mental space, probably even more than the time. It's the interruption to thought and flow because I can really get in a Zen flow with my yeah with my when I'm in my workflow system. Oh, come on. Uh, so yeah, it takes a while to do this too because it has to read those and compare to the whole file or the whole thread. Eh, I'm curious to see how this is going to work. Kind of amazed that I'm even contemplating doing, or that yeah, that it even occurred to me that I don't know. It's amazing how easy if you work with AI right, it makes doing stuff like this. It it's mind blowing actually. Like I always wanted to like maybe learn to like program or develop games and stuff, but I just didn't have the patience for the speed at which projects would go. Like learning how to do it, and even then doing it would have been like slow. And the flow, the speed of the pace that my workflow generates keeps me engaged in ways I was almost impossible for me. I have highly ADD brain, and sometimes it's really hard for me to stay focused or engaged. And AI's helped me with that a lot. All right, so that was me just trying to fill a bunch of time there. Let's see. Oh wow, so All right, it wrote both of them already. I usually don't like it to do it this way. I'm going to have to double check them. Oh, wow. That looks a lot bigger, actually. Well, I don't remember what the old file was. Okay, so let me take a look at these first. Okay, so guessing it just added. Yeah, I think this looks right. How big was this one? Wow, they're both 20. Oh, it was 15. Okay, so wait, where am I keeping those? Those are up here, of course. Okay, so let's drop these in here. And then this is how I double check. Okay, so I'm a little worried about the thread close agent operating protocol. Um, so we're going to do this. And this is a good way to double check these. And it might be because it took stuff out because we actually streamlined the process. So this might actually be right. But the fact that the file size is smaller always makes me a little bit concerned. So we are going to do this. Let's see, operating protocol, right? Yeah. Okay, GPT. So the new file of these was smaller than the old file, which always makes me a little nervous. So I was hoping you could compare these two files and see how the old and new match up. I think it might be simply because you took stuff out because we streamlined some stuff, but I just want to make sure we're not missing anything important in the new file. So go into cross-check mode and compare these two, please. Which is way easier than trying to figure yourself if it was done right by reading them, right? So, um, documentation, man, it got so much easier with this system. Like all of a sudden, it's just part of the flow, and I don't have to worry about it. Like I don't know, that would have been a big hang up for me trying to do anything like this pre AI. Okay, so it is all right. Okay, great. So I'm going to combine. So I'm going to copy those over, and then we'll come out and finish the thread closure protocol. Actually, so what we need to talk about next is what the next thread should be about. So this is a short. This is a short uh, thread. Like this thread could go longer without getting wonky, a lot longer. But we're at a point where we're switching context and like roles and what's going on. So it's a really good time to close this thread and start a new one, even though it doesn't really need to be closed based on length or anything like that. Okay, so we're going to start coding, looks like. Okay, so go ahead and write me a proper handoff, including roles and all that. Oh, 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 oh. Stop, stop, stop. Okay, I stopped you there. I need it in a copy code box, please. Every once in a while, forgets that. For some reason, that even seems to work better. Like the way it writes it in the copy code box is more effective than the way it writes it here if I were to just highlight, copy, and paste. I don't know why, but it is. Um, I think, I don't know. It really likes MD files. It feels like it's really good with them for instructional files anyway. So I kind of use markdown files purely like they're in my system. They are purely like files used to talk for AI to talk to AI, basically. They're AI created in order for AI to read and instruct. Their instructions. I guess programs, basically. All right. So we are going to start a new one. Uh, um, execute thread initiation protocol and verify. Okay, yeah, all looks good. All right. So I like responses, short conversational prose. Don't give me any more detail than necessary. If I need detail, I'll ask. Give me handoffs and copy code boxes, but not unless not until we've talked about it and I've asked for one. The next thing I give you will be a handoff from the prior thread orienting you to your place and your role in this project. So actually, I might stop this video there. It has gotten long enough. I think this feels like a good stopping spot. So I will probably restart this thread in the next video. Um, I hope anybody watched it, enjoyed it, and learned something. Got something valuable out of it anyway. I'm learning as I go. Like this is me learning. This is not me showing you something I've already figured out or something I know. This is me learning as I go. So, but the project feels like it's going strong, and I think we're gonna have a good outcome.